Hi, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm not in the Joe Blog studio, I'm on holiday. So hopefully you're enjoying seeing me in a different location. Now I wanted to make this quick video really to talk about what's happening with the war in Iran, because I think a lot of people assume that it's all over now, it's yesterday's news, nobody should be bothered about it, there's a ceasefire in place, everything goes back to normal. That's certainly what the markets would like to happen. We've seen stock markets bouncing back, we saw oil prices coming down, everybody thinking, well, that's all done and dusted, let's move on to thinking about what's going to happen in the summer holidays. But unfortunately, the ceasefire, which is only a ceasefire, let's not forget, it isn't a permanent resolution, there's not been a settlement agreed, we've still got a lot of outstanding issues, notably the fact that Iran is still wanting to develop its nuclear program, so it wants to continue enriching uranium. So that was the starting point for these hostilities, that the US and Israel said that Iran was on the verge of developing a nuclear weapon and that they had to be stopped immediately. So Iran is still sticking to its guns on that one. It wants to maintain its sovereign right to enrich uranium. But also we've got a lot of other sticking points that nobody's any closer to getting an agreement on. So the ceasefire was a ceasefire, I say was, but there's no permanent agreement. Unfortunately, the ceasefire looks to be over, because it was reported that 3 commercial vessels, so ships transporting, I think one of them was transporting LNG, maybe one was transporting oil, and may have been a cargo vessel, have all been attacked in the last 24 hours. They've been hit with missiles or drones. Now, the USA is claiming that Iran is responsible for this, and in retaliation, the US has launched multiple strikes against Iran. Now, I've got a list here of the things that were targeted as part of those strikes. So the US Central Command has said that the targets included air defense systems, command and control centers, coastal radar installations, anti-ship missile batteries, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval facilities, and more than 60 IRG fast attack boats around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the objective here isn't just to retaliate and to start bombing randomly in Iran. It's actually to take out some of the facilities that the US say are necessary for Iran to be able to continue their attack on all of these commercial vessels. So it's a targeted response. And Donald Trump has said that the interim agreement with Iran is effectively over. So basically he's saying that the ceasefire is now null and void, and has warned that further bombing will follow if Iran continues their attacks. So it looks from the US's point of view that they are in full strike mode again. And in response to this, Iran has said that it is going to retaliate with a crushing response. Now, we don't know what that means, but the last time it said it was going to issue a crushing response, immediately after that, it attacked lots of oil and gas facilities all around the Middle East. So it didn't try to take out US personnel or any of the US bases, it just started attacking oil facilities in places like Kuwait and Bahrain and Oman and Saudi Arabia. So what that led to was a huge increase in the oil price and the panic about global oil supplies. Now, not surprisingly, oil prices have jumped back up on this news. They're back up to around $80 per barrel. And just to put that into perspective, at the start of this year, they were sitting at $60. So we're looking, sort of 30% increase compared to where we were at the start of this year. And actually, when you look at what's happened in the global economy since the start of this year, you would have expected oil prices to be lower today than they were at the beginning of the year, because the economy isn't motoring as fast as it was at the start of the year. So realistically, oil prices shouldn't be sitting at $80 per barrel right now. And what that will do is seriously damage the global economy. And this is really the point that I wanted to make in this video, that if this war is starting up again, if Iran really is going to come under attack and then start retaliating and taking out oil and gas facilities, then what that's going to do is firstly cause problems with regards to the supply of oil and gas and other items, because the Strait of Hormuz will immediately close again. It's pretty much closed right now as we're speaking. If that happens, then that's going to push up prices. So the price of oil, price of gas, which is important, particularly for Europe, because gas is used to produce electricity in a lot of countries. They converted to gas back in the days when Russia was selling very cheap gas, and so it was environmentally friendly and also cheaper to produce electricity from gas rather than the old-fashioned coal system. So a lot of European countries are now dependent on gas. That has to move through the Strait. 20% of all oil and gas moves through the Strait of Hormuz. So there will be an increase in all of those fuel costs. Plus, we're going to see everything being delayed. So supply chains around the world will be impacted again, because cargo ships that are carrying all sorts of things, so your Christmas presents or anything that you're looking to buy, maybe a new car or something like that, then they won't be able to go through. And so we'll go back to that problem where all of the vessels are just sitting waiting in dock for something good to happen so they can go through the Strait of Hormuz. It's going to push up prices globally. That's going to push up inflation. And when inflation goes up, then central banks, their main reaction to that is to increase interest rates. That's what you do if you're a central bank. If inflation's going up, the way to tackle it is to make borrowing more expensive. So people like you and me don't borrow, so we don't take any more debt on. Companies hold back on expanding and taking on debt because it's too expensive. So they slow down their investment programs, they don't expand. So all of that will result in a slowdown in the economy, not just your economy, but the global economy. So the resumption of this fighting and the retaliation that we're now seeing on both sides, which is likely to continue happening, is really bad news for the global economy. So I wanted to just remind you that this war isn't over. I've made multiple videos on this. We've talked about the fact that the war hasn't been settled. We haven't got a resolution on all of those really sticky points. It's difficult to see how we're going to get a resolution because the two sides are at completely opposing ends of the spectrum. The US and Israel are adamant that Iran has to give up all of its nuclear capabilities and enrichment. Iran is adamant that it never will, that it wants to keep it for its sovereign integrity. How you get around that, I've no idea, but that's part of the problem. And then Iran, of course, has got the change of leader because their previous leader was taken out. His funeral, his official state funeral, has been held recently. There's days of mourning going on in Iran. And I think the problem, maybe this new attack came as a result of that, as a feeling of nationalism within Iran. Everybody's feeling that, a little bit enraged that their previous leader, who was in charge of the country for a very long time, was killed as part of the original wave of strikes. So it may be related to that, and maybe it'll blow over and Iran won't carry on attacking vessels. But realistically, I don't think we're going to see a resolution anytime soon. And if we don't, then we're back to square one in terms of the inflation and all of the prices that we've just talked about. So I wanted to make sure that you were in the know, that you are aware of what's going on, that the war has started again. It may blow over. It may go back to a ceasefire within the next couple of days, but it's certainly long. We're miles away from this being put to bed, and we could just see this continually happening every week or every month for the rest of this year. And if that does happen, it's going to have a really negative impact on the global economy and on inflation and interest rates and all the things that I mentioned earlier in this video. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing me out and about in nice environments. If you have done, then please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Maybe hit that hype button to boost this video a little bit, because that does help me with the algorithm. That would be fantastic if you could do that. And I'll see you again on the next video.